If you've heard of Power Apps portals but aren't really sure what they're used for, today we're going to show you a use case for when you'd want to use Power Apps portals instead of some of the other Power Apps options. When you develop Canvas apps or model-driven apps, those are generally speaking for internal users and for internal processes. If you want to connect with external partners in a collaborative way or deliver content to customers, you would really want to look at Power Apps portals, which is what we're talking about today. Power Apps portals are built on data that's in the Dataverse, much like a model-driven application. So the development of it is similar in some ways, but portals adds a CMS or a content management system component where you might be building a purely HTML landing page for someone to look at, or you might be styling it using CSS to bring in that CMS element to the solution. To give you a better idea of what it would be like for both an external partner to use a portal and an internal person to manage the data that comes in from a portal, we created a little bit of a demo. The demo is from the perspective of maybe a hospital or a government agency who is looking to provide answers to people who are looking to determine if they are eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. And so basically it just goes through that process of making a simple request and determining whether or not someone's eligible and responding back to the user. So as you can see on this page that we've brought up, this is the main landing page for our app. A couple things to note. The first is that when you look at this page, it's really doesn't look like a lot of the other Power Apps. There's no signification that it's part of Office 365 or that it's even a Power App. To the end user, it just looks like a regular web page. You would also notice that at the top here, you'll see the URL. The URL that's listed is dedicated for your app. So if you want to add a custom vanity URL with your domain, you can do that. You can make this kind of look and act exactly how you want from the perspective of kind of the URL and also the branding on the site. So in our case, what we really want to focus on is to get users to say, hey, I want to choose first where I would like to check for my eligibility. So you can see there's pins on the map here for the various locations where you might be able to get a vaccine. Henry Ford Hospital, Garden City Hospital. And if I select one and then click the apply button, what's going to happen is it's going to immediately ask me to log in. And in our case, you'll see it was automatically logged in. That's because we've configured our authentication to use a Microsoft account. And in my case, I'm already logged into this browser session with my credentials. And so it just logged me in. If you wanted this to be a separate provider, you could configure this to be Facebook. It could be a Google account. It could use Twitter. There's a lot of different options. For this demo, we just chose to only allow a Microsoft account for this purpose. So now that I'm logged in, I can enter my name, and I can select some of the other options. Now, what's really important here is that the form that's being displayed, I didn't develop that form myself in like an HTML editor. This is what I was talking about in the relationship to the model-driven solution. This is all based on a table. So in the Dataverse, there's a table. That table has a form. That form's configured for the purposes of this website, and that's what was selected here. And all that's really been done to it is the styling on top of it. So this has been styled to better fit the web application that we built, and not just the default Dataverse solution that you would normally have. So now if I submit this, it'll immediately say, hey, we've submitted it. This is the date it got submitted, and provide some additional feedback to you. So at this point, there's nothing more for the person who's made the request for them to do. They just kind of need to wait for a response. If I go check from the perspective of the user who would be responsible for responding to applications, what happens for them is they'll get an email saying, hey, there was a new application, and then they can click this link that's in the email to go out to, this is now a model-driven application that is based on the same data that we used within the portal. And that model-driven application simply says, hey, here's what somebody requested. You know, it was Wayne that requested it. This is what they've responded for their different options. And then basically I, as the user in this case, simply just need to say, hey, you're eligible, and put a comment. We hope you schedule your appointment soon, and save. So now at this time, we could have an automatic trigger that would say, hey, you've selected somebody as being eligible, notify them. The reason that we didn't do that is like, hey, what if we wanted to have some conversation back and forth, or maybe I want to be sure and decide when I want to send this off to the user. So instead what we've done is said, here's a manual flow that you need to run. So on this application, we would go and say, hey, I'm going to send them an email with their status, and click run the flow. And now, if I go back to the context of the user who has requested the status or requested to know their eligibility, I now have an email that says, based on the request you submitted, you're eligible, and has some information. As you may realize, the current solution that you saw so far is a very manual process. A human has to actually respond and provide eligibility status. But in reality, a lot of times the eligibility status can be determined automatically based on the answers they provided. In those cases, what we've done is actually already implement a flow that would check based on when they originally submit it, if they're 65 or older, they're automatically eligible. And so what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to actually manually go in and create another request. And I'm going to Wayne Green. And the only difference is I'm going to say that I'm 65 or older, and I'm going to click submit. So again, kind of same process. The big difference is that if I come here and look in my email, what's going to happen is, and it'll take a second for it to come, I'm automatically eligible. So I automatically got something. I didn't have to go into the back end and say that I was eligible. Also, if I go to from the context of the back end user that's maintaining it, I didn't receive another email saying that there's another application, because again, the application was automatically handled by the system. So that's the entirety of the application, the little application we built. Hopefully it gives you a good idea of what the user experience is, both from the external party that would be interacting with you and the back end user that would, the back office user who would be responding to those requests. One thing we didn't cover in this video is how to build this little application. We plan on covering that in a future video, so please be sure to subscribe so you get notified when that comes out. So that's all I have for you. I'll see you on the next video.